What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's watch list time ahead of game week 26. There's a bunch of players I'm looking at, as you can imagine, because it's a double game week. We've had a few injuries. There's a lot of moves to be making this week. I'm eyeing up maybe like a -8 and -12, possibly higher. I'm not sure about that, but it's going to be a big one, right? There's going to be lots of transfers to make. So we're going to talk through a bunch of players, and in one case, a team as well, because there's a lot of players from one team that I'm looking at. So if you do enjoy it, give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you're new around here, and let's jump into it. All right, let's talk about Arsenal as a whole. I mean, pretty much like the whole team is on my watch list, but the 5 options you see on screen are probably the only ones that I would seriously consider bringing in. Now, I don't want to make this video too much about chip strategy, but obviously if I do end up, putting the Arsenal players on the watch list and then end up bringing them in this week, that is kind of going to force me to free hit in game week 27, which means the fact that they blank doesn't matter. And then they come straight into a game against Watford. And although, Leicester fixtures pink because they do still score quite a few goals, they also concede a lot of goals. So for attackers, it's not that bad. Villa and Palace aren't that bad either. I mean, Villa, right, we were looking as, maybe a better defence under Gerrard. And maybe they have improved a bit. They got a bit unlucky, but they've just conceded 1 to Newcastle and 3 to Leeds as well. So I wouldn't put any of the fixtures after the blank as bad fixtures for Arsenal. And again, without getting into too many details, there is a chance that Arsenal and Chelsea will double in 28 or 29. So not only are you getting them in for the second best double game week fixtures, I would say, behind Liverpool, if you're free hitting, that doesn't matter. Then you get Watford, you got the outside chance of a double. They also definitely play in game week 30 as well. So you reduce your potential need for using a free hit in 30. There's just a lot to like about Arsenal players. And to be honest, I probably should have given this a bit more thought before this week, but just things that have happened this week are making me think the free hit in 27 looks pretty good for my team. So these are the 5 options I've got. So Ramsdale would come in for David De Gea for me. Right? I'm not going to go into too much detail. Ramsdale's great. When he gets clean sheets, he tends to get a lot of bonus points as well. So goalkeeper, we don't need to talk about too much. Defensively, right, I think Tierney is the one. You definitely want to go for Tierney if you can afford it. And he is the one that I would want, right? He's more attacking than White. He's only 0.6 million more, so it's not a huge amount. And I think Brentford at home and Wolves at home both look pretty good for a clean sheet. I know Wolves have just scored 2 against Spurs, but they don't tend to score that many goals, right? So I see that as a good fixture for defensive returns. And I don't think Brentford's a bad fixture even. If you've got the potential for attacking returns from Tierney as well, I think he looks really good. And if I don't make a goalkeeper transfer this week, which isn't guaranteed, I think Tierney is like nice cover for everyone that's going to have Ramsdale as well. Like I would be bringing Tierney in on his own merits, right? Attacking 2 good fixtures to come after 27. Hopefully he doesn't pick up any injuries. So he does come in on his own merits, but the fact that he kind of covers off a bit of the Ramsdale haul as well definitely helps. So the only way I would get Ben White is if prices have changed so much that I just can't afford Tierney, because ultimately Ben White's going to get you clean sheets and that's about it. And I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. For 4.5 million, he's a great enabler as well. I think one thing with Tierney is you're always going to feel like you have to play him, whereas that's not necessarily the case with Ben White. But yeah, I do think Tierney is the one. In midfield, it now has to be Saka. I don't think there is any other choice. I don't think there's a debate. I don't think there's an argument to be had. Martinelli's going to miss one of the games in 26. There's nothing to say you couldn't bring him in later on, by the way, if you've got a spare Arsenal slot. I still think Martinelli is a good option, and obviously he's a bit cheaper than Saka, but Saka's absolutely nailed. There's no going near Odegaard, no going near Smith Rowe for me. It's just not worth the money saving. They're just not all. They're also not. I mean, Smith Rowe, I know, I don't need to get into it, scored a lot of goals this year, but I do think he's overperformed. I think, again, if you had Saka and Smith Rowe playing regularly, I still think Saka's the one, right? So he's the one I'm looking at for sure. Ultimately, for me, it probably comes up for Saka versus Rafinha. And for that discussion, that all comes down to whether you're free hitting in 27, because I do think that for the double, Saka is a better option than Rafinha. But obviously, if you're not free hitting in 27, Rafinha's got a fixture there. So it really depends what you're doing for your own team. But for me right now, I'm kind of like, I kind of really want to bring Saka in, to be honest. So yeah, I'm definitely eyeing him. So I think Saka, Tierney are probably the 2 that I'd be looking at this week. Lacazette is like an outside shot, but realistically, he would block Martinelli. So again, I'd have to look at transfer plans. But also, I think the only reason I'm looking at him is because so many other forwards are just bad. I don't think Lacazette is a bad option himself, But I just think the only reason I'm looking at him is because everyone else is so bad. And if that's the case, how much do I really want him? So I don't think he's a bad option. But for 8.3 million, like if I think about the kind of midfield and defence that I'm probably looking to build over the coming weeks, I just don't know if I have enough money to slot in someone like Lacazette. So I would look at him if I needed a forward, but I don't think he would be anywhere near my kind of top 3, 4, 5 choices to bring in this week. So they're all the players that I'm genuinely considering for this week. And I do think a couple of Arsenal players are now going to come in for me. I have to make that decision obviously closer to the deadline. I might change my mind. But Tierney and Saka are definitely top of the list. The double looks good. Watford looks good. If they get another double straight away as well in 28 or 29, I mean, that's pretty damn good value, especially if you're free hitting in 27. So over the last couple of game weeks, I've talked a lot about Harry Kane and how he's part of my transfer plans. The Ronaldo to Kane switch is definitely on. And I'm not saying I've completely written that off, but one thing I probably didn't give too much not enough thought to, it's not that I give it no thought, but not enough thought, is the price difference between Son and Kane. It's about 1.5 million, right? So it's quite a lot. That possibly lets you keep a player that you'd otherwise have to sell to enable, bringing Salah back in my case, getting Harry Kane as well. The only thing that I guess is kind of worse about Son than Kane is the position he takes up. Like right now with the forward slots, I'm finding it really difficult to find 3 forwards that I actually want. Like right now I've got Broja, Ronaldo and King. And Broja is probably the best one out of that lot, given the value that Ronaldo is offering right now. So trying to find a third forward, like Weghorst is not, well, he's picked up an injury, he's gone off injured against Liverpool. We'll have to wait and see if he's going to be back or not for game week 26. So he's definitely an option if he's fit. But if not, it gets really tricky. You've got Lacazette, but he's 8.3 million. Jimenez is okay, but he's 7.6 million, I think it is. So it gets more and more difficult to fit them in. So Son is an option because you saved that money. It just depends whether there is a kind of forwarded choice. And Weghorst would have to be fit. But for 1.5 million less, I do like Son. The other thing is, I know I've kind of mentioned this before. I mean, his stats are great. His goal threat's decent. His assist threat's not bad either. When he plays 90 minutes, he's scoring a goal nearly every other game, which is great. And Conte has kind of changed formations a little bit. They've kind of gone from a 3-5-2 more to a regular 3-4-3 now. Which means obviously Son kind of plays wide, but he can come inside as well. And then they had Nuno early on the season, and it doesn't really matter what happens. This guy still scores points. And throughout this season, where Spurs haven't always looked great, Harry Kane's not always performed, Son is still on 6.2 points per game. And I don't know, I just think like he's going to continue doing that. That this guy just gets points when he plays. Simple as that. And although the double in 26 is not great, Man City away, Burnley away, Son is a bit like Salah always seems to blank against Burnley. Son always seems to score against Man City, right? Because he will be used as kind of the threat on the counter. And you do obviously get that extra game. And even if he blanks there, you've still got the Burnley game. And then Leeds away is a decent game as well. Someone mentioned to me on Twitter about how good Spurs have played against Wolves, very sarcastically, the fact they hadn't scored. But Wolves are pretty good in defence, right? Leeds are not. They just conceded 3 goals to Villa, a team that didn't even score against Newcastle. So I really like Son. I think in game week 28, even if you decide to still captain Salah, who I think's got West Ham, which is obviously a perfectly fine decision to make. Everton at home is also a good fixture. After that, maybe you're starting to look to get rid of him. But the fact he plays in 27, again, this will all come down to free hit decisions. I just think Son looks like a really good option. The big thing for me is there a third striker that I actually want? Because if not, it might be just worth going for Kane instead. In isolation, if they were at the same price, taking up the same positions, like as in midfielder, if they were both midfielders or both forwards, I still think I just about prefer Harry Kane, even though he's had a really poor season so far by his standards. I think he was a little bit unlucky not to score against Southampton when Son got his goal. And obviously with penalties as well, if he gets a couple of them, then suddenly it just shifts the balance towards him. But I don't think Son, there's nothing wrong with Son whatsoever. So if it works out better for my team, I think Son will be the way I go just because of the price difference. But we'll have to wait and see what happens with forwards this week. So Wolves just don't concede many goals, right? This is the same under Nuno. It now seems to be the same under Lager as well. Like, they've conceded 17 goals so far this season. Only Man City have conceded fewer, and they've conceded 14. So Wolves have conceded 3 less goals than Man City. Obviously, part of the reason they're not quite so far at the table, and they are doing really well in 7th place, by the way, there's every chance that they could compete for that top 4 spot, is they don't score as many goals, right? Obviously, Man City absolutely blow teams apart. From a defensive point of view, though, they are decent, right? And I think, like, I've got Reguilon in my team, and that is looking like a pretty big mistake right now. I am considering just like swallow my pride and just get rid of him this week. That's why I'm looking at Tierney as well. Now, obviously, Tierney has a really good double in 26, so I'm not pretending that Seiss is better than him. But Seiss does play guaranteed in game week 27 and game week 30 as well. And Wolves' fixtures are pretty good from kind of game week 28 onwards. So although West Ham away is not an ideal fixture, the fact that they play and then they've got a good fixture on makes Seiss pretty nice for 5 million. And also he's a decent threat in the air as well. We've just seen Craig Dawson score against Leicester, right? Who knows? Maybe Seiss could do the same thing. I think the only thing is, like, versus like a Tierney, is I think Tierney's got an outside shot at 2 clean sheets in the double. I'm not sure about Wolves. I think if they got 1, that'd probably be your best hope, really. I think more if you're going to bring in Seiss, or if I look to bring him in, is because he's got that good run of fixtures, and it's because he does play in 27 and game week 30. So as you can probably tell by the way I'm talking about these players, my big decisions are all going to come around like Arsenal players. But I do think that Seiss is nice. Obviously, you can get some cheaper players from the Wolves defence. Nuri not necessarily 100% nailed on, but Johnny has been out for a long time. Right? I think he's done both his ACLs, I think. Right, so he's been out for a long time. For him to come back in now and regularly play against Nuri, that just doesn't seem that likely. Obviously, Marcel did start a game recently, but from what I saw from Wolves fans, he wasn't great again. So I think Nuri will play most games, but for 4.3 million, he's a really good enabler. But with Seiss, you get someone that's absolutely nailed on with a lot of goal threat in the air from set pieces as well. And obviously Kilman too. But it's all going to come down to budget. But for me, if I'm swapping someone like Reguilon and I don't really massively need the money, then I can get someone around the 5 million mark. So I do think Seiss is someone that people should look at. This is all going to depend on your chip strategy, right? And I know it's really boring to hear, and it almost feels like a way to get out of making a decision. But if you're someone that's especially used one of their free hits, then Seiss looks like a pretty good option. So if you're using it in 27, he'll play against Leeds in game week 30. If you're using it in game week 30, then you've got someone for game week 27 who also you could easily play in game week 28 and game week 29 and game week 31. Right, Wolves fixtures are just pretty good. So I do like Seiss. For my team, it's all going to depend on that free hit 27, but the fixture run is decent, good goal threat, low percentage own as well, right? So he's a massive differential. 5 million, pretty decent. There we go. Let me know who's in your initial thoughts for watch lists this week going into game week 26. There's definitely going to be some massive hits. I know some people have wildcarded soon and have set up for this, and some people have probably been thinking about Arsenal players and didn't go for players like Reguilon like me. But I do see kind of -4s everywhere. There's going to be -8. Some people are going to be doing -12s and more as well. So it's going to be an interesting week. Plenty more content to come. Do give it a like if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button if you're new around here, and I'll catch you again tomorrow.